Hey guys, and welcome back to another Bible with Becks. Today we're going to be talking about God is not done with you. Hey guys, thanks for coming back to today's video. I've been thinking about what I wanted to film, and I started listening to the song Evidence by Elevation Worship. It's quite an old song now, I feel like. And I was just thinking about different passages I've been reading, and I guess what really was on my heart is that just God is not done with you. There is nothing that you can do. You cannot go so far from God. You cannot make that many mistakes that He is done with you. And I really wanted to share that because I have been in that place where I felt like God was done with me or God was punishing me, and none of those things are true. They are so not true, and they're things that often we tell ourselves, and it's Satan getting in our heads, and it's him. He's trying to put those seeds of doubt so that he pulls us away from the love of Jesus. And so I wanted to share with you today a bit about my journey with thinking that God was done with me and how that was just so not true, and encourage you that wherever you're sitting today, whether or not you've made a commitment to follow Christ or not, you can. Whether you did in the past and you feel like you're too far from it now, or whether you never really knew him and you feel like the way you've lived your life just doesn't align enough with him, those things don't matter, because Jesus dying on the cross meant that when you want to be a part of his family, all you have to do is say, I believe that Jesus died on that cross. I believe that he took my sins away. And I believe that he is your son, God. And now I want to live my life for you. And when you do that, no matter what you've done wrong, Jesus paid it already on the cross. This is the amazing thing about being a believer of Christ. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to do so many good works to get into heaven. You don't have to be perfect to get into heaven. You show up as you are and you tell God, yeah, I've made mistakes and I haven't lived in a way that is pleasing to you, but now I want to. And because Jesus died on the cross, you're forgiven and he's made you righteous, which means he's giving you the doorway into heaven. And so as long as we then do our best to live for Christ, to do what pleases God, you will be able to go to heaven. And that's amazing because none of us are perfect. And even if you see someone who is a Christian, their life is not perfect. They are not free from mistakes. They're not unblemished. There are things that have happened. There are things that will happen. And you should never be put off by looking at other people and think that they're too good and that's why they're a Christian, because no one is too good. No one is going to be good enough to be a Christian. There is no good enough. We all make mistakes. And so that's why I want to encourage you that if you think God is done with you, he is so not done with you. He is waiting for you. He loves you. He is always for you, and you can be a part of his family no matter what. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna just dip into a bit of why I felt like God was done with me. I've talked about growing up as a Christian. I never had a drastic departure from my faith, and I didn't go in like another direction and test out the waters. I just really believed that Jesus died for me and that he loves me, and I believe in the Bible. It's the word of life, it's truth, and I've always believed it, but I felt like because I wasn't good enough and I wasn't doing good enough things and I was making mistakes, that I wasn't gonna get to heaven. I cheated myself because I convinced myself, and Satan convinced me that through all my mistakes I wasn't good enough. And that's not true, like I said, because Jesus died for me to take away any mistake I ever make. That doesn't give me the will to go out every day and sin and do horrible things to people and then get away with it and go to heaven. No. But it does say, if you make a mistake, it's okay. You are forgiven and you have the opportunity every day to do better. But I cheated myself out of it, and I convinced myself that the mistakes I'd been making were so detrimental and that God was done with me. And I did feel that way in high school because I didn't spend time reading the word and I didn't spend time in prayer, and I felt that that wasn't right. I knew it wasn't a good way to grow in my faith, but I was punishing myself. And lots of you know, I've said again multiple times, I've had anxiety and I have health issues, and I felt like those things were punishments because I wasn't doing the right thing. And they weren't punishments. it says in the Bible that every good thing comes from God. When we go through trials and stuff like that, they're not from God. He's not saying, here, I'm going to make you go through this awful thing, enjoy it. Like, it's nothing like that. We may go through trials, but he will equip you to get through them. He helps us, and he can use bad situations to teach us goodness and to help us. And so, you know, it wasn't God making me ill because I deserve a punishment. There is illness because there is sin in the world, and so I'm just someone who experienced it. But I think that God harnesses my illness and uses it. And he used my anxiety, he used everything in my life to shape it and to move me into different places. And yeah, basically I felt that way when I was younger, but a couple of years ago, so I was in a relationship with somebody, and I truly felt like I was doing my best to walk with Christ and that we were having a Christ-centered relationship. But the nature of being human means that you like to be physically close, and I was battling all the time with maintaining the choice I had made to wait, and I did manage to maintain that. However, I felt so bad if I would make a mistake, and I felt that I was then being punished by the fact that I was getting ill and that I lost a job that I had just started, and I really felt awful. I felt like maybe God was done with me. Maybe he's sick of me making mistakes, and he's just so done with me. And it's really sad when I sit here and I think that that's how I thought, because it was a horrible place to sit and believe that God was done with me. And I feel for people who feel like God is done with them, because I know what it's like to sit there and really believe that. But with the grace of God, he showed me that that was not true. I left that particular relationship, and I think for anyone who's in a relationship and wanting to wait for marriage, it's going to be a struggle, and it may work out and you get married, or it may not. For me personally, that relationship was not the healthiest, and in the end I'm really glad that the relationship ended, because I was able to stop going through a cycle of making mistakes or trying really hard and then feeling like I was messing up, because that whole cycle was not healthy and it wasn't good. And but I could see afterwards, when I looked back at it, that I was just being so harsh on myself, and I was punishing myself for making mistakes, because I felt, you know, bad, because I knew that it wasn't honoring God or honoring myself or that other person all the time. And it's okay, you know, you need to know that, you need to feel that those things are wrong, so that you can try to move in a way that is more pleasing to God. But I realized I was just being really punishing on myself, and the Bible doesn't talk about it like that. He doesn't say, well, you've made the mistake, that's it, you're done. That's not what the Bible says at all. And in retrospect, I could see that I had convinced myself God was done with me, but he wasn't. He stayed with me the whole time. And when I really started looking, I was like, hold on, I managed to start preaching in church, and different things happened in my life. So God was still moving and he was still using me. And where I thought I was being punished with changing jobs, actually he gave me a period of rest where I wasn't in a job and I started to get really unwell, and that enabled me to rest, to not be at work and worrying and stressed and getting sicker. I had rest. He then opened doors during that time of rest to start working more with the youth. I then changed from working in one particular area, which was with teenagers, to then working with children under the age of 5. And then being at the settings I was in recently, that completely gave me so much teaching, learning, amazing experiences. And now, through this pandemic, he shifted my direction again. And I can see those things are not punishments. They're God's way of shaping me and moving me, and actually he's blessing me through the things I'm going through. And so I want to encourage you, God is not done with you. If you are facing situations where maybe you've made mistakes and then you're having testing things happen to you, it's really easy for us to assume then that that is God punishing us, but it's not. Really take a look at it, and you will start to see God is with you, and maybe he's using the situations that are happening to just change you maybe from the mistakes that you're making, trying to help you to grow in your faith, but he's probably also blessing you through that test and that trial. He is with you, and it's not him that's punishing you. It really makes me think of the story of the prodigal son, because that's such an amazing example of how the son left his father, took his inheritance. That must have been such a painful thing to do, to tell your father, I basically want the money that I should have got when you died, but I want it now and I want to leave. You know, it's like as much as saying, well, you're as good as dead to me, I just want the money. He's done such a dramatic thing to his father, and he leaves, and then he, wastes all his money, and he's living in a really sinful manner. And when it comes to the end, he thinks, I need to go home and see my father. And he's not expecting his father to forgive him or to still love him. And then the big shock and the surprise and the amazing thing is, as he goes back to see his father in that sorrow of, I've made all these mistakes and done so much wrong, the father runs with open arms and says, come to me, I've been waiting for you. I still love you. I forgive you. And that's exactly what it's like with Jesus, with God. And they're waiting for us to say, just have me. I have made mistakes and there are these trials in my life maybe, but just have me. Lord, be with me. Show me the way out. And they are waiting there with their open arms. God is never ever going to be done with you. He will always wait there with open arms for you to come to him. And so, I really just want to encourage you that I've been there and I've been through those trials, and looking back, I can see that the trials I went through were not because of God. They were not a punishment, and he wasn't done with me. He hadn't forsaken me and left me. I convinced myself of that. I pushed myself away from God. Often when we are making mistakes or going through trials, we stop praying and we stop reading the Bible and we stop trying to hear God's voice, and we do it to ourselves. And it's Satan's way of trying to rip us apart, because now he sees a weakness, and so he wants to tear you apart so that he can win you over to his side and not be with God anymore. And we all do that, and when we do that, that's why we feel like God's done with us, but he's not. We just need to open our ears again. We need to run back and read his word. We need to talk with him, and we need to sit there and say, Satan, not today. You're not having me. Always remember that he's not having you. Just run and be with God. So I just want to encourage you today. God is not done with you. He will never be done with you. He will always want for you. So you can just run to him, because he will have his open arms waiting. I hope that this encouraged you in your journey. I don't know what else to say, but I just really hope that it encourages you, that God is not done with you and he will never be done with you. Have an amazing Sunday, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!